Hi, Tribe. I'm Evelyn, and this is Demon Dialogues, the place on Objectively Type where we talked about everybody's favorite subject, our demons. So this week I want to talk about Demon Blast. So my flavor of Demon Blast is actually in that third animal, that like what sometimes is called the hobby position. So I don't have like Demon Blast to the level of somebody with like Blast Last, let's say. So first let's talk about blast real quick. So what is blast? So blast is simply when you take an introverted observer and an extroverted decider, you put those two together, the action that they create is blast. The way I like to think about it is it's like you've somehow consume, play, whatever. Well, anyway, you've taken in information. You've got information. Let's say it that way. You have information and you are blasting it out to the tribe. So it has a very sort of exterior sort of motion in my kinesthetic mind. It's very much I mean, they use the word blast, right? What do you think of when you think of what do you think of when you think of like a blast of any kind, whether it's a sound blast or whether it's a explosion blast or a punch blast, right? You think of things coming outward and usually expanding. Like when you think of a big blast, you think of something expanding. And that's the idea with blast, is that you're taking your known information and you are taking it out to the tribe. Blast is, in my mind, like, okay, let's say it this way. The animals can be broken up into two major categories: the information animals and the energy animals. And blast is one of the information animals. And so in my mind, consume is taking in information and blast is putting out information. It's very much a teaching animal. The energy animals are sleep and play. Sleep is about taking in and conserving energy. Play is about expending energy. So similarly, blast is an extroverted animal, just like play is an extroverted animal, because blast gets that extroverted decider involved. So what does that mean? So like I say, a lot of the simple way to understand blast is about teaching. So like in these videos, I've really been blasting. I've really been blasting at you because I'm taking my known information. I'm taking in my case, my known SI sensory information that I've gathered over time, and I'm blasting it out in these videos. Whereas play is like taking in from the tribe and giving and taking and giving and taking and giving. Play has much more of a back and forth feel. Blast has very much of to me, a lot of what I think of is like a lecture kind of feeling of like I am up on a plinth or I'm up on a stage and I'm blasting. So another comparison could be blast is like listening to your professor or your teacher talk to you, versus play is like a round table discussion or a workshop or so forth, right? I happen to be play first, play dominant. And so like you probably can even like sense in my energy that like I really like play energy. Like that's really like what I like to do. But this is demon dialogue time. We're talking about what we don't like to do. We're talking about the dark side. So blast. So blast is for me. So my type or my animal stacking is play, consume, blast, sleep. So blast for me is third. So it's not like the big baddie. Like it's not like it's not my last animal. We talked about sleep already. Sleep is my last animal. But I do have Demon Blast. Like it is a demon, and it's definitely an activated demon. In that they often call that the hobby, because I think because it's in that third position, we have not easy, but easier access to it than our last animal. We get there naturally, and then we get like a validation cookie for that because you're doing your demon, and we're like, ooh, that's cool. I didn't expect this validation cookie for doing this particular demon. I'm going to do it again. And so it kind of has like a more fun feeling to it, which I think is why it's often called the hobby animal. And I think also people get into hobbies that allow them to use this demon function as opposed to their job where they get paid to do their saviors. Like, because your saviors are reliable. Your saviors are like, you'll do them naturally. And so ideally you want to get yourself into a position. I mean, I'm talking from like a general, like, the easy way before you really get into the hero's journey, before you really start to delve into the darkness. Sort of the easy way is just be rewarded for your saviors, because you're doing your saviors all day long. You might as well get rewarded for it. Whereas the blast is going to be more of like what you do as a hobby, because it's not like your strongest suit. It's not like your number one, like, thing that you're awesome at, but yet you can get validation for it, and that feels good. So in my case, let me put my phone down. In my case, I happen to be Blast third, and it is very much my hobby animal. Versavia and I started the podcast. Now I'm starting this like YouTube channel to do a little bit more blasting. But even in just my day-to-day life, like at work, I don't blast all day long, but occasionally I'm called upon to blast, and so it's something that's part of my life, but it's never been like front and center. I'm interested in. I've always wanted to teach things. Like that's always been like a hobby interest of mine. So I got a yoga teacher training certification. I got I did martial arts for many years, and I went up the ranks and I became a teacher in that. And I became a Fit for Mom instructor. So like being an instructor is a hobby for me. That's what I do as a hobby. I had a blog for a while where I was blogging and putting my thoughts out there. I'd like to get back to that. Once the kids are a little bit older. Right now, honestly, these videos are probably the easiest way for me to get my blast out. And that's the other thing I've experienced for me, at least from the speaking aspects of blast, is it's something I need to do. So I don't know if that's like my play energy happening or my savior TE or like what, but like I can tell my life is worse when I don't have an opportunity to practice my blast as much. The teaching aspect of blast. And so, we talk a lot about the speaking and the teaching aspects of blast. But a big aspect of blast, and where I see it show up as a demon for me personally, is in the getting started aspects of blast, which is finally taking that known information, that organized information, and then doing something with it in the external world. So you're taking your OI, so your observations and so forth that you have like gathered and organized, and then you are doing something with it in the external world, in the extroverted world. That is where I've definitely seen Demon Blast show up. So, couple examples. One is I was probably around this time last year. I decided I was going to start a podcast. Actually, it was probably a little bit later in the year because so I'm recording this at like 6 in the morning on a Saturday. I'm looking out the window and it is dark. Like it is dark. And so I think it was a little bit later in the year, I decided to start a podcast, and I was going to call it Walks with Mom. And the whole idea of the podcast was I was walking my neighborhood and talking as if like if you were to go on a walk, and you were talking to somebody, because at the time I didn't have a podcasting partner. This is before Versavia and I hooked up to do Objectively Typed. And so I was going out in the morning, I was recording these podcasts, I was doing that. I was, kind of play energy, jump in and do it. I never released it. Like I'm telling you this story and you're like, oh, let me look up Talks with Mom. It doesn't exist. Because it was like I felt like I had to consume like the thing about the animals as a filtration system. I love that analogy. If you think about like a water filtration system, you've got like the groundwater that seeps down through the sediment and so forth, right? If you think about the animals that way, it's like I play energied it, and then I kind of got to consume, which was learning about podcasting and getting the tools. Like, so I got the mic, and I got editing tools and different things. And I started sort of banging those blocks together and learning. And I never got past the consumed state for that one. It also happened that around that time, Versavia approached me for Objectively Typed. And so it actually kind of worked out really, really well, because I think she and I, who we both have Blast third, we can kind of help each other with our blast, because I think on my own, I wasn't able to just get started and put something out there to the external world, because I wanted to play, consume. Because that's the thing. It's like I would play, and then I'd consume more about it, and then I'd play a little bit, and then I'd consume more about it. And I never really got to the point of like just putting a product out there, which is more blast. Like blast is like unidirectional too, to me, whereas play is back and forth and consume is unidirectional, right? And I never put my information out. I was just never comfortable putting it out. But then, working with Versavia, recording Objectively Typed, now I had another person who was relying on me. I had, so the two of us had objective goals of like, and I believe I'm going to give her the credit, because I believe she was the one that was like, let's plan on releasing by this day. And so having an objective goal in reality spoiler, that is huge for going on the alpha journey. If you don't have an objective goal in reality, you're just going to get stuck in savior mode. And that's what happened with me. I didn't have an objective goal in reality to release Objectively Tight. I mean, excuse me, we definitely did release Objectively Tight. To release Talks with Mom. It was just something my FI wanted, but I never had an external goal. And this is why, like, before I got into OPS, I was into the self-development space for a long time. And you hear about like accountability partners and how helpful that can be for people. And sometimes I poo-poo that, like, I don't need an accountability partner. I'm plenty motivated. Thanks. I'm over here getting it in. But the problem is I'm doing all this work. Nobody's seeing it. Nobody's seeing it because I don't have an objective goal in reality. And the advantage of a real accountability partner, because that's the other thing, is I have like helpful tribe mates that are like, oh yeah, tell me when you're going to release your thing. And I'll say like, I'm going to release it then. And they say, okay, great. And then like that day comes and goes and is not released. And those people are too nice. Those people are too nice. Like at my job, they're going to be like, dude, this was due. Like, we need to get this done. And so like at my job, I'm much more in sort of an alpha state because look, we gotta get this stuff done. And like where I work is like, we gotta get this airplane delivered. Like there's no like, oh, well, I don't feel like it or I'll get to, no. We have requirements that need to be met and things need to happen. And that is what I've definitely found. Like maybe this is an ENFP jumper thing, but like, you know, my sort of more stereotypical ENFP tendencies come out definitely in my personal life where it's just a hobby, where I have hobbies, right? I won't have a committed date. So having Objectively Typed, having Versavia, you know, say we're going to release by this date, starting to make a very clear release schedule and, you know, setting our goals reasonably. That's the other thing I think is really important. This is a little bit of, as I'm talking about dealing with Demon Blast, I'm also going to just tell you some tips for like, in general, motivation, getting started and continuing something. And goal setting. Because I think people, those of us, especially with low blast, we get a little bit stuck because the perfect becomes the enemy of the good. We want things to be so perfect. Because a lot of times we have great ideas and we know they're great because we have consumed the shit out of it. Like we know. And so we're like, I have this great thing. I'm not giving it to the world until it is perfect. Now, the problem with that is while you're waiting for perfect, your neighbor who doesn't care about perfect is just going to go with a very similar idea. It's not going to be your great idea. It's going to be something like it. And they're just going to go ahead and go while you're trying to get shit perfect. And that's why sometimes you just have to put it out there. For people like me who thankfully have play above, my play is high, I can play energy it. So like I've been putting out these videos and, my lighting's not quite perfect. My makeup's not quite perfect, but it's like I'm play energy, just kind of starting to put it out there. And I have like objective targets and goals. And so that was where I went off on this tangent, was like, when setting goals, it's important, I think, to set the bar to something that is challenging but reachable. Like, don't set the bar to be so high. Like, so back to our podcast that did launch, we had talked about like, hey, do we want to release every week? We were recording every week. We could release every week. And I think our EP sort of tendency is to want to just be like, yeah, let's go, Energizer Bunny style. But we both made the conscious choice to say, no, we're going to release every other week and see how that goes. And so what we've done is we've built a healthy backlog. So like the episodes as they come out have been a lot of times recorded like well in advance. And that helps. That gives us some buffer to allow for life to happen, but it also gives us an objective goal in reality. And I think that that's really important, is like when you're setting goals, this is what I tell people at work too. Like when you're setting goals, set yourself it's a reach, but it's not impossible. Like don't set yourself the goal that like, we're going to release a podcast a day. Like that's crazy land. And like when you do that, when you set a goal that's like that in reality, and then you don't hit that goal, it hurts your ego so bad that you go back into your saviors, you go back into your just cycle, whatever your cycle is, whether you're consume sleep or consume play or whatever, but you're not going to blast. Those of us with Demon Blast, you're not going to get out of that. You're going to go back to your saviors. So I can't sort of stress enough the importance of objective goals and reality to be able to pull on your demon functions. Another thing about having demon blast is like the feeling of it is gonna feel uncomfortable. It's like Shannon made an excellent video in the class. This is in the class, so those of you who aren't in the class won't be able to see it. But she made this excellent video. If anybody's ever seen Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade, which is one of my faves, by the way, there's that scene where he has to make the leap from the lion's head. He was like, only from a leap from the lion's head will he make it. It's a leap of faith, right? And so, it cuts to like Harrison Ford. He's like, oh God, like I don't have faith. Like he's not that guy. But he has to take that step, that first like, oh shit. But then he makes it, right? Like come to find out it was some sort of optical illusion, like, I don't know, ancient fucking thing which really, if you think about it, like if my NT starts to turn on, it's like, wait, this doesn't make sense in reality. But whatever, that's not the point. The metaphor stands. The metaphor is, you have to take a step when you feel uncomfortable taking a step. And that's the deal with our demons. It's always going to feel uncomfortable. Sorry. That goes back to my previous one. Embrace that. Embrace the darkness. Embrace the uncomfortable feeling. And know it's always going to feel uncomfortable. It's never going to feel good. It's never going to feel good in the moment of stepping when you don't quite feel ready. And part of like learning to use our demons is, so our brain is telling us, because it's a demon, our brain is telling us, I'm not ready. I'm not ready. There's going to be some times when you're actually not ready. But how can you tell the difference, right? Like, and this is the hard thing. I have a whole nother thought about those of us, like, so we all live in our own kind of like matrix pods, right? We all live in our own reality. And I side note, and this will be a teaser for a future demon dialogue. I was at a Dharma talk last week, and the Dharma teacher, that's a Buddhist teacher, was talking about this concept. And I had this idea of like how we're all in our own consciousness, and I've kind of taken it to a different place that I think will be fun to talk about in the future. But suffice to say, we're all kind of living in our own matrix pods, let's say. We're all living in our own reality. And in that reality, right, for those of us with Demon Blast, very often we're not going to feel comfortable getting ready to go. And the actual reality is sometimes we're not going to be ready. But we're going to have to try every time. We're going to have to shoot every time. Because you miss 100% of the shots you don't take. 100% of the shots you don't take, you miss. But the shots you do take, you may miss some, but you're going to hit on some. So you have to try. You have to at least swing. You have to at least play the game. And so I love seeing people get out there, sometimes when they're not 100% ready. Like, Dave and Shan's class is a great example, in case you guys are watching this. Like the early classes, they were a little awkward. They were a little weird. They weren't like super polished, but I was kind of an early subscriber and I stuck with it. It was a minimal investment, and it was like, they're just learning, and I think like that's what you have to do. Sometimes you have to go ahead and get started and get going before you're 100% ready. And especially if you have Demon Blast, it's going to feel super uncomfortable, but you got to embrace that discomfort. You got to say, okay, discomfort, come on the trip, and just go. So those are my thoughts for today for Demon Blast. Love to hear what you have to think. Comment below. Let me know. Who says that? That's Jeremy Johns, right? Yeah. Comment below. Let me know. Yeah. I'm not that great of a YouTuber yet, so we're not doing fast cuts yet. We'll get there. We'll get there one day. I have faith in myself. And so, have a great morning, guys. Bye.